If you've been a lifelong fan of LEGO Star Wars, you've probably noticed things have been changing recently. Sometimes for the better, sometimes not. I wanted to talk through the pros and cons of modern LEGO Star Wars and where I feel they're falling short and where they're improving. First up, I want to talk building techniques. This is probably the area I think LEGO has shown the most improvement in. Builds feel tighter, there's less gaps, there's more complicated building techniques that make for a more accurate build in most situations. Sets have better angles, better shaping, and in general are moving towards a more tiled off, polished look as compared to the old stud covered sets. However, with some of these changes, I do feel like some sets feel over engineered. There's a level of complication that sometimes doesn't feel like it needs to be there given what the set is and who it's for. They also can sometimes be sacrificing structural integrity instead of improving it to add certain details. These improvements also sometimes seem to prioritize the display and visual aspects of the sets while sacrificing the playability and the interactiveness that they come with. However, overall, I do think building techniques are improving year after year, and the modern era of LEGO seems to have much more polished and playable sets as compared to the prior years. Minifigures are another aspect where I think modern LEGO has made some great improvements and failed to improve certain areas. I think it's hard to argue that arm printing and leg printing has come a long way and that they have started to find a sweet spot in terms of detail versus over detail. One issue I have with some minifigures is that they can appear overly detailed with how great modern printing has become. I think there's a charm to the simplistic level of a LEGO minifigure, and it feels like sometimes they're seeking too much detail in exchange for that. I do think the new addition of dual molded legs is going to be a huge benefit moving forward. It adds such a great look to the characters and really gives them a 360-degree boot looking feel as opposed to just printing on the front. The other facet of dual molded that has been really beneficial is with helmets. Dual molding the specialized helmets on a lot of these characters as opposed to just printing color on top really gives them a crisp, clear design. I think this will be more prevalent with years to come. As these sets age, the paint won't fade because it's a dual molded setup. I do think that LEGO sometimes feels the urge to reinvent the wheel with every new major set they bring out, and sometimes that leads to them not improving but actually reverting back to a worse version of a minifigure. I think a prime example of this is with the new UCS Slave 1. The young Boba character has been really great and almost perfect in the years past, and the new one falls so short with the coloring and specifically the hairpiece. I know a lot of people also complain about helmet holes on modern clone troopers. They have never bothered me too much, but I do think that it is a weird inconsistency we've seen that LEGO has refused to fix. At a certain point, this is going to start affecting more and more people as their refusal to change these is becoming more of a talking point. I would like to give a shout out to the new rangefinder piece that has come out recently. That is a fantastic upgrade, and I think LEGO needs to start focusing on these small little upgrades to these minifigures in order to improve them. Along with these upgrades also comes capes. I think the new fabric soft capes are a fantastic upgrade. They flow so much better. They're able to bend without creasing and looking terrible and ruining them, and I think they add a lot to the playability of the minifigs. Another area that I think LEGO has the right intentions with, and I'm happy they're pushing through, is the sub-themes and experimentation they're doing with the different sets that have come out. Personally, I think the helmet line, the midi-scale ship line, the dioramas, and the small sub-themes like Rebuild the Galaxy, I think these are doing a lot to increase the variety of sets and displayability that our LEGO collections can be. While some of these have been a little hit or miss, and certainly some sets within these sub-themes have been very hit or miss, I'm happy we are getting variety and LEGO is experimenting with giving us new and unique styles of builds. One downside to this is it does feel like our smaller sets have taken a hit in terms of shelf space and availability to make room for them. We've seen a major loss in $10 and $15 sets for either young children or just battle packs in general. While I'm happy we're getting a variety of playscale sets, it does feel like that has taken a hit as well to make room for helmets, dioramas, and midi-scale ships. While it's limiting playscale sets, I do think it's casting a wider net to the LEGO community as a whole and giving us a lot of variety in order to display different sets, scenes, and items from our favorite IP. I do hope that LEGO sort of feels out how these sub-themes operate and gives them a few years to really get their bearing if it's worth continuing or not. Sometimes it feels like LEGO either cancels an idea too soon or extends a bad idea out way too far, and it can put a limit on what sets come out that year. Now, price has become a hot topic in the community, not just with LEGO, but Star Wars LEGO specifically. With prices going up and up, it feels like the days of $10 to $15 battle packs are gone with the wind, and we are now in the $20 to $40 range. While having smaller sets at higher price points does suck, I do think that having new minifigures and dual printed pieces all contribute to a higher price point that's worth paying for. I do feel like sometimes the value does not match the cost of the set, and LEGO needs to take a priority in adjusting some of these prices. However, I do think they could justify these prices by including more printed pieces, dual molded character aspects such as legs or helmets, or giving some more exclusivity to items. I also feel like LEGO could adjust some of these prices by bringing back $10 sets, even if they're small builds. I think a $10 set that includes a minifigure and a small build is a great entry point to offer on shelves and gives a stark contrast to the now $2, $3, $4, or even $500 UCS sets that are appearing more often. LEGO has recently done this, and I think it's being received very well with the new Mandalorian speeder build retailing at $9.99. Speaking of this, I think the modern day size of LEGO builds needs to be talked about. There seems to be a big push on UCS sets recently, which, while cool and very detailed, does seem to take away from their focus on the play scale and smaller themed sets that a lot of casual collectors, it's more in their budget for. While UCS definitely has its place, I do think they should add some of the details and building techniques they're saving for those into the play scale models. I think one of the biggest examples I can give of this is while the UCS Razor Crest is such an iconic set and an amazing build, the play scale Razor Crest that came out had a little room for improvement. I do think overall building size is going down, and this has been very obvious in new sets where it almost seems that minifigures don't fit in the areas they're intended to be in. Having doors that don't fully shut on the new Coruscant Guard gunship, depending on where you place a minifigure inside, is a bit of an oversight. I think with playscale sets like these, they need to start prioritizing room for minifigures, not just the ones included in the set, but ones that fans will want to add in as well to make these scenes more lively. Finally, with build size, I think some of the side builds we're getting in sets are really underwhelming. Probably the most iconic example of this recently is the Death Trooper Night Trooper Battle Pack. While the minifigures in this are fantastic, including really pristine dual molded helmets, the build that came along with it left a lot of people wanting more. The build is a stark contrast to the minifigures you get, and it feels like you just stack a few 2x2 bricks on top of each other and slap a windshield on the front. This was a huge miss for LEGO, and I wish they included a more detailed build for this, as that set would have been a much more iconic battle pack for a lot of fans. Finally, I want to talk about scale. Scale seems to be constantly changing in LEGO Star Wars ships year by year, which can be very frustrating when trying to build over the course of that time. It feels like every new ARC 170 we get is a different size and scale, and that can be frustrating. Whether this is done to save money for LEGO or keep the piece counts low, I'm not sure, but it does leave a lot to be wanted by fans building these sets. However, LEGO is, in the heart of it, intended for children, and I think the play scale size being smaller is something that they're not noticing as much as the adult fans. I do wish LEGO would announce some form of minifig scale ratio that they would try and stick to moving forward. That way sets could be used interchangeably to build scenes and everything would look relatively sized together. While fans have come up with this, and you can obviously rebuild and change sets with your own pieces to change them how you want, LEGO doing this out the gate and setting the tone would be much appreciated. I'm sure there's a million things I didn't hit on, but these were just the major things that I could think of about current modern LEGO. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments. What is one thing LEGO is doing well and where there's room for improvement in the Star Wars sub-theme? Thanks for watching. I'm excited to see what LEGO has coming forward, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.